Okay. What is going on? Well, it's not showing me the live video, but it says I'm doing a live. I'm very confused. Well, it's not showing me the live video, but it says I'm doing a live. Very. And now we got the double sound. So let's see if this fixes that. What is that dinging from? Well, it's not showing the live video, but it says I'm doing a live. Very. And now we got a double sound. So let's see if this fixes that. What is that dinging from? And now we got a double sound. Okay. Still don't know why there's an echo. Other than the webcam keeps turning itself back on. Okay. This is frustrating. What if... Okay. Got rid of the echo. Well, kinda. What else is going on? Wait. Okay. Now video's dead. Oh. Okay. How about now? I don't know what the software's doing. This is new. Okay. Oh my god. Is this working now? Only took 22 minutes. Okay. Gotta love technology. Everything's set back to the original settings. Okay. Now let's do this. Oh. And you can hear all the typing. And now let's have people give their questions. Sorry for the delay, everybody. This is frustrating. Okay. I'm going to share this. To get some people back in here. Maybe. Okay. So, for anybody coming in there now, just to explain, we how do I say? Oh, so every fourth Wednesday we'll be taking questions. Hopefully, one of these days won't have the internet gremlins, but feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the event, and I will go through and try to get those going. So. Oh. So I have to retype that. Okay. So, start us off. I got one question in the private message, and in the private message, it was a question about potty training. So, with the they were just wondering what the best way to start off potty training is. There's actually a number of different factors in this. First of all, I always suggest that the pup is kennel trained. This is for a number of reasons. When you kennel train a pup, you can start letting them train their own bladder. Animals generally don't have to hold it unless they're just trying to avoid predation or something like that. So usually what they'll do is they'll just go wherever they want to. But with kennel training, you basically set them on a schedule. It's the same kind of thing with having a baby kind of cry through the night. So first you kennel train them. Now obviously they still have to come out of the kennel fairly often. Usually I prefer every 4 hours, so put them in there before work, come back for lunch, let them out, then let them out when you get home. Now the other key part with a puppy is that you need to be vigilant, and you need to let that pup out every
depending on how young it is. If it's very young, like 8 weeks or 2 months to 4 months old, I would be taking that pup out every 30 minutes to an hour. And then after that pup is out on a fairly regular basis, while you're out, always treat and reward. Or technically, you need a mark, treat, reward. So they go to the bathroom, you mark it like, okay, good job, and then give them that treat. This is to reinforce them to go to the bathroom outside. On that note, I also block off areas where the puppy can hide. The puppy doesn't go off to hide because it's trying to get away with going to the bathroom. It goes and hides somewhere like around a corner to go to the bathroom because it's never gotten in trouble there because you don't catch it doing it in the act. Now they have a very small point of reference or correlation. So if you come home and they've pooped in the house, they're not going to, and you yell at them for it, they're not going to correlate that with them pooping in the house. You can actually, if you rub their nose in it, you can actually create cecaphagia. That is the disorder of eating their own feces. Now, sometimes dogs just develop that because for some odd reason they like it, but that also can be developed because of a stress. Basically, what happens is they go to have an accident, you rub their nose in it, they start thinking, oh, no, there's the scary poop. They're going to come home upset, and they don't associate that they pooped, but they need to get rid of it so you're not upset, so they eat it. So that's one reason why not to do that. Another thing I don't suggest when potty training a pup is using pee pads. When you use pee pads with a pup, the problem is the texture. The dogs don't generally learn, okay, we go do it out here. What they learn is the substrate that's under their feet. So how does it feel under my feet? Okay, time to go here. And the problem with puppy pads, I mean, they have their purpose to keep an area clean when they're kind of going and doing their business. But if you train them to specifically go on the puppy pads, it feels like cloth. And what's the next closest cloth feeling in your house? Carpet. So literally, if you train them to go on that, you can accidentally train them to go on a carpet. Especially if the puppy pads go away. Then they will find the next closest substrate. So, the main thing is when you have a puppy and you're trying to teach it to go potty outside, what you need to do is you need to reward it for going outside. If it's young, like very young, you need to be taking it out every 30 minutes to an hour, over and over and over again until it figures it out. You also need to kennel train. When you kennel train the pup, you will basically train its bladder because it doesn't naturally have a reason to hold it. And the kennel needs to be small enough that the dog can't get away, but also it needs to be big enough that they can stand up, sit, stretch, do all the motions that they feel that they need to do. And also, of course, the kennel cannot be used as a punishment-based process. It needs to be a place that they like to go and will want to be in, because that way, oh no. Uh-oh. Let me see. Okay. Alright, so it sounds like the sound is coming through. Sorry, Buffy. There we go. Okay. So, yes, so where was I? Oh, so yes, the pup needs to be in the kennel so that way, but the kennel needs to be big enough that they can stretch, like I'd say full stretch, and also actually don't take where the dog is standing, but take where the dog's sitting, because that's actually where they are the tallest when have their all fours on the ground. So they need to be able to sit, they need to be able to stretch, but it just needs to be just big enough that they can't get away from it. If they can get away from it, then they will go in their kennel. So you want it small enough that they have to hold it, Of course, you don't want to make them hold it too much because then you can up into bladder issues and renal issues of that nature. Okay, so that was brought in by Bree. She actually private messaged me for the potty training methodologies. Does anybody else have any questions? Anything they want to know or curious about animal behavior? Don't ask me what went wrong with the beginning, because all I did was set the settings back to normal, which is what they were at the start of the recording. So who knows what that was. Where's Grey Wind? Oh, they must all be sleeping in the bed. All right. Nobody has any questions? No questions coming in? How about in the chat, in the discussions? Oh, I see. Tux and Lexi are not happy if they are not laying on top of each other. Well, that's a learned behavior. Usually, dogs actually get they get an endorphin rush whenever they touch another in their pack. That's pretty common among any social animals. So dogs generally want to be laying or touching something either of their person or each other. Now, the hello, Leah. I see Sydney and Buffy in here. Who else is in here today? Oh, that's about it that I can see. So, yeah. So dogs generally like to just be touching or being near another animal. Obviously, some dogs are more than others. A lot of golden retrievers and labs are just cannot get enough physical attention whatsoever. Also, another factor with that might be, I believe that those two. They cry if they go bigger. That's an interesting thing. I'll have to talk with you about that. But I was going to say one other factor with it is if you have two dogs from the same litter, which I think Tux and Lex are from the same litter. And hey, Neil. So the Tux and Lex are from the same litter. Then what happens is the dogs actually end up becoming overly bonded with each other because literally they are with each other their entire life. So sometimes that can come up with some anxiety issues. I had some clients earlier this week that actually their pups, they didn't have separation anxiety from the humans. They definitely had separation anxiety when the two pups ever got split. So we're working on them just getting used to the idea of being separated, and you're going to try to add some positivity, some happiness whenever they are. Oh, that's right. They're brother sister, but they are from a year apart. Okay, so that bond issue that I'm talking about right now doesn't really classify for Tux and Lex, aside from them just being together for a long time. So anyway, but if they are overly bonded together, basically you just try to get them to be separated and try to do as many happy things as possible. You can't necessarily bring that to a pot like they'd be happy about being separated, but you can at least train them and teach them to the point that they are okay with the idea and the concept of being separated. But honestly, if they are comfortable in the kennels together and they're choosing to constantly do that, then that is perfectly fine. Big hairy dog gets hot all the time. Any recommendations to help him cool? Okay, there's a few different things. One of the methods, with big fluffy dogs, this is very tricksy. Oh, hi Bree as well. Bree, I did, after we fixed the bugs, I started the recording again, and it is at the beginning of this recording where I talk about the potty training with pups. So once this ends, it will load up, and you'll be able to listen to in on that. So the big hairy dog gets overly hot. This is a common issue, especially here in Kansas. Depending on the breed, sometimes you can shave them. I don't necessarily agree with shaving every breed. For example, Huskies obviously are the obvious one that you don't want to shave. You don't really want to shave Shepherds. There's certain hair types. Well, basically, what it is the ones you cut. And actually, Buffy is a groomer, so she could answer this better than me. But the ones you can cut, there's a difference between hair and fur. And the ones you can cut are the ones that have hair. Basically, hair grows continuously. It never stops. Fur, which, believe it or not, we actually have some on us, has an end point. It grows to a point and it stops. So if your dog has fur, you don't cut it off. If they have hair, then you need to trim it. But if you have a dog that has fur and it is overheating, there's a number of tricks you can do. One thing we do, we put ice in their water, of course. That helps cool them off. There's these types of mats you can get that are actually cooling mats, and they just feel cold because oftentimes those dogs, you'll find them on the concrete or on some type of surface that just sucks the heat right out of whatever's on it. So you can get special pads that are cooling bed pads that actually seep heat away from the dog. So I definitely suggest that. Aside from that, definitely give them access to the air conditioning anytime you can. Plenty of shade, lots and lots of water. Let them use their natural processes to cool themselves off. Any other questions? I think all my dogs have decided that they want to go to the main bed tonight. I was wondering about a cooking mat. Yeah, that would, yeah. Pulling and tugging on leash. This is a very common one. I actually need to what I need is I need a second person to video me showing this process to put that online as well. Really terrible when people come over. Need her to be better around strangers. Okay. So let's start with the first issue, pulling on leash. And also, hello, Christian. So pulling on the leash, that is a very common issue. Usually what I do is I actually teach a few other behaviors first. Let's see if I can bring one of mine in. Great wind, Oscar. Come. Did I put them outside? I'll go check real quick. You guys just lazy on the bed. Great wind, good boy. You're not going to get in trouble. Nothing scary is going to happen. Great wind. Target. Come on. Yeah. There you go. Good. So usually what I do is I actually start with this behavior of target. Great wind. Target. Good job. Which basically just redirects them. What are you afraid of in here? Oh. I know why they're afraid. Okay. So the target behavior, what you're doing is redirecting them back. So what we do is when we're trying to teach them to walk with us, what we'll do is we'll teach them to target first or teach them some type of recall. He's very nervous. I'm seeing the replay of that video. Great wind. I'll just let them stay on there. They're nervous for whatever reason. Okay, so basically what you do is you train them to redirect back to you. usually by using some type of target behavior or something along those lines. When you get that trained, then you start going out on the walks. And what you do is every time they start pulling you, you stop. You stop right in your tracks. And if they don't look back at you, as soon as they look back at least a little bit, I always click and reward them, because that draws their attention to you. And what you're doing is you're redirecting them back towards you. And then once they come back, then you start walking again. This is going to be kind of twofold, because A, you have to have a very high reinforcer to compete with everything else out there, and B, the walking itself will be a reinforcement, so being allowed to go, but you're just saying, hey, we're not going if you're pulling like that. So you stop. Now, one thing that people do, though, is they jerk and pull the leash. That's not what you need to do. You just need to stop and just hold the leash nice and steady, let them control the tension, so that way you teach the tension itself to become the signal to look back and check in on you. So basically we start with some type of redirection training, but we go out on a walk. If they look back at you naturally, you click and reward. If they don't, then you ask for the redirection. And then after a while, they basically learn that once they hit that tension on the leash, they will start looking back and coming back to you, and eventually they just stop pulling. So that's the basic gist of how to get them to pull. Is terrible when people come over, need to be better around strangers. Okay, so I get this a lot as well. However, there's a lot of different things that could be happening there. So terrible for one person could be jumping up on somebody. Terrible for another person is the dog is lunging, snapping, showing teeth, trying to jump at their throat, which is a whole other ball of wax. So it just depends on what we're doing. So there's a few different things that we do. One, the dog needs to get used to people being around, and also needs to have a positive association with those people coming around. So you need them to be around more and more people. Particularly in your environment, because if you can get them used to strangers out in the park, but behavior goes ABC: antecedent, behavior, consequence. Antecedent's everything before the behavior. So whatever terrible behaviors they're doing to the people at the house, well, that's at the house. So that's one type of antecedent. That's part of the antecedent. That's part of the thing leading up to the behavior. They might not do it when they're at the park. So if they do it at the park and at home, then we can work around it, because it's just a general desensitizing. However, we need to eventually practice in both areas. One thing that I like to do is if dogs don't want to go up to strangers and they don't like to take treats from them because they're too freaked out, I have the strangers, I give them a number of treats, and I'll put like a bowl in the middle of the room. And then every time that person moves or does something, or just periodically, the person will just toss a treat into the bowl. If they get freaked out by the person moving, then basically what we'll do is the person moves, toss the thing into the bowl. The reason I toss it into the bowl and not have the person feed them is because if the dog is afraid of the person, they might be willing to go to them because of that drive for the food, but they still have that, oh, I'm nervous and I'm scared, and then they'll snap because they're just at that high intensity. So usually what I do is I have a neutral spot away, but they know that person is tossing the treats into that location. It's a very normal, repetitive process, and eventually they do get better with strangers. It does take quite a while, depending on what level, Christian, that you are having with the pup being around strangers. That's definitely something I work with a lot of dogs that have either fear or anxiety issues or aggression issues in general. This is usually the thing that we have to do is get them used to people. Then usually we get them used to people moving around, and then we get them used to more and more different people. I hope that answers that question. Anybody else have another question? Unfortunately, looks like we have a smaller group this today. We had worse technical gremlins at the beginning, so unfortunately, but one of these days we'll get it right on the first try. Gray Wind, what's up, buddy? I'll go look for you while I wait. Hi, Gray Wind. What's up? Sorry. What? Gray Wind.
Like, you never asked me into the office.
Gray Wind. Gray Wind. Good boy. Yes. There you go. What you nervous about?
I don't know. You're asking me to go into the office, and I think you're going to pin me down or something. Are you going to do something?
Gray Wind. Oh, not a problem, Christian. I hope that helps you out. Anybody else have any other questions? If I had more time, I'd just go play with them. Usually that works with a lot of dogs to get them at ease if they like the person, and then you can play with them to kind of calm them down. My guess is they sensed that I was upset when the technology wasn't working, and they were just like, you know what? We're just gonna go because Daddy's angry. Which is definitely a thing that a lot of times we have to work on. Every individual has to deal with that. They wonder why an animal's acting certain ways. Well, 9 times out of 10, you kind of have to look at yourself, because if you're in a bad mood, the animals, they know that. They know when you're in a bad mood. They know when you're angry, and it will affect their emotional states as well. So I was trying to contain it as much as possible, but obviously they still could see the signs on my face and the rubbing of the brow and things like that. So they decided to. They just don't feel comfortable when people are upset, so they just tend to leave. Any other questions? We're about 10 minutes to when we were scheduled to finish the AMA. Hopefully next week it will go off correct the first try, which is funny since I test it twice beforehand, and always those gremlins like to show up right when they are least needed. Nobody has any other questions? Let's look in the... No. All right. What's up? Oh, there's old lady the mare. Yes. Hi. She's like, I will take free treats, please. Normally I don't give free treats, but Namara's earned them with her years. She would go out with me with some of the demonstrations over the years, but she's just too old at this point in time, so she's made it to retirement. Is that so, Rakshasa? Okay. I can't remember what you called it, but Lexi is a huge barker when anyone comes into the house, but at school she is totally comfortable with everyone. Okay, so this actually kind of goes into the whole getting used, like that, whether you train the dog to get used to people at the park or at home or vice versa. It's called situational behavior versus a generalized behavior. So situational behavior literally has to fit the situation. Whatever that situation is, it does it over and over again in that situation. and the generalized behavior are the behaviors that basically happen with very little correlation or specific triggers. For example, uh, if a dog doesn't like one person versus they don't like every person walking in the house, that could be situational versus generalized. Maybe it's just in the house versus out of the house, or maybe they behave perfectly fine in the house but are horrible when meeting guests outside of the house. But that's what it is. It's situational versus generalized behavior. If you train a dog if you only train, for example, while you're at like in a barn, in one specific barn, you only train there, then you go home and wonder why the dog's not listening to you at home. Well, you've situationalized that behavior. They only have to do those things while at the barn, and that's how they learn. That's what they focused on. So that's what that is: situational versus generalized behavior. All right. Any other questions? I thank the people who are still here for bearing with me. Um, those are some really frustrating technical gremlins at the beginning. Old lady in the mirror, did you leave? Yeah, you left. Okay. All right. Xandu! What about Xanadu? They're all just sleeping in the bed in the other room. All right. Got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any last questions for me, it could be about just about anything. Any animal related subject matter. And I'm definitely debating next time we do this. I'm hoping to have a new webcam. I think mine's just a little bit dated. Oh. Oh. Oh, okay. So, but Tex is trained the same as school, and Lexi will even stop at Mike. Will Lexi will even bark at Mike. Okay, yes, but Lexi and Tux are two different pups, and they have two different minds. So, Lex, it doesn't matter what you trained her; it's a matter of what she's learned. So, over the years, she's learned to bark at everyone. She's not barking at school. If I'm understanding this correctly. So that was good because that's where we want her being quiet the most. So she's learned over the years while at home to bark at people in the house. There's a few different things you can do to help relieve that. One is literally wait her out, and as soon as she stops barking and there is silence, click reward. Of course, you're going to have to click reward both of them. Since they both be there, but you're going to want to mark and then mark that moment of silence, even if it is just a breath. Yeah, this is just something that Lex has figured out, and honestly, she was doing that before I came into the picture, so I think it's just such a large learning history. That she just feels she needs to do it. I don't think she's doing it out of any place of negative emotion. It's just she feels the need to do it. So I would actually just start marking and rewarding every time she's quiet. The moment, even if it is just her taking a breath, because at some point in time she can't bark forever. She has to breathe in. I would mark and reward that. I definitely think it's something that she's just learned because of uh, yeah, it's basically, well, actually, honestly, I think it started off as excitement, and I think now it's just it's such habit now. She might have just done it out of excitement before, and now I honestly almost think it's just a habit that she has. So now it's a learned behavior. So now she needs to unlearn it. You can't unlearn anything without brain damage because the memories are always going to be there. So what you need to do is replace it with a new behavior, and that behavior is quiet, because being quiet is a behavior as well as barking. So obviously you don't need to train that at school, but you do need to train it. At that home. Let's see here. Is it true when you pet a dog and they put their paw on you, does that mean they are trying to pet you back in a way? No, it's not a strange question. That is completely false, though. That is not what they're trying to do. That is a learned behavior. Dogs don't naturally do that. They don't pet each other in the wild. They lick each other. So when a dog licks you back when you're petting, that is kind of a back and forth thing for them. When they put their paw up on you, it is because they've learned that a human will pet them more when they do that. Maybe one day they just kind of randomly did that, just trying to get your attention, and then somebody goes, oh, that's cute, and starts petting some more. So what that is just a learned behavior that, oh, I get this thing I want, the touching and petting, by putting my paw up. One of my dogs is notorious for this. That is Oscar. He's a big black lab, and people joke that he's a cursed object because you can't stop petting him once you start ever. Because once you start, he will always be asking for more. So that is just a learned behavior, and they've learned that means more petting. So they're not exactly petting you back. They just want you to pet them more. Oh, tell me about it, Rox. What are you doing? Is it past dinner time? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it's past dinner time. I'd like some more dinner.
There you go. Yeah, I get questions like that all the time. There's a lot of weird ideas out there, especially if you look on the internet about what and why animals do certain things. 9 times out of 10, the behaviors that we see with our pets and things are behaviors that are learned. Oh, you little cheater! That is the treat bag. Well, you're late for dinner. I'll get you dinner. Any other questions? Give it a little time for the delay. So I will be doing it. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine, Buffy. Yeah, that's honestly the best method to do that. And I'm guessing Lex also barks while in the kennel, so that won't help with her either. But basically, you just gotta, you're gonna have to just work with her when people come in and out. It's just, unfortunately, it's just a learned behavior. It's a bit one that she's figured out that's what and thinks that's what she's supposed to do. But it'll just it's one of those things. The longer they've been doing it, the longer it is going to be till it goes away. Unfortunately. All right. Any other questions? Well, yes. And by kennel, I don't want you to kennel her as a punishment. I would say put her into the kennel to make a more controlled greeting so that people come in, she's in the kennel, and then you let her out of the kennel to at least come from a different angle. You change the antecedents leading up to the behavior, and if that works, then there's also a place to go where we can, while she's quiet, coming and greeting them, we can click and reward. So we might do that. It's not so much like just kenneling her while they're there. It's actually, when I say kennel, I mean as a beginning to the process of introduction. Basically, just make her come in at a less energized state. Ah. Okay, so how do you know if a dog's going to bite someone? That is very tough because literally, it's just like people. Um, Everybody and everything acts a little different, so you have to cater to their individual tells. Actually, I'm about to post a video about just dogs with fear and a few different signs. Usually, tail wagging is not always a good sign. Um, Especially, it depends on how the tail's wagging. The cackles on the back of the fur or on the back of the neck, when the fur goes up, ears go down or back is a sign that they are not feeling comfortable. Barking is a warning. Showing of the teeth, of course, is a warning. But over time, you just kind of figure, honestly, you just kind of figure out when it's about to happen. But even then, even with my years of experience, there have been a couple dogs that have thrown me for a loop because usually, especially if they've been punished for showing said signs, like one thing I don't like to do is if a dog barks or growls at somebody, I don't punish them for that because all you do is get rid of the precursors that they're warning you. I'm not feeling comfortable in this situation. I might bite or do something. So I don't try to punish that. I just try to redirect them away. Acts aggressive. A lot of times, sometimes I have to see those types of behaviors because just because they're going up towards somebody doesn't mean they're actually mad or angry. Doesn't mean they're going to bite. Just means they're warning and letting you know that they feel uncomfortable. And sometimes when people tell me that the dog's acting aggressive, I've even come in and all it is actually play behavior. That people are just misinterpreting that play with the fast oscillating wagging tail and just the high energy of it, so that people get hurt because the dog is big usually and pouncing and bouncing on things. But as far as how to tell when it's going to bite, generally I don't even push the subject. So if the dog starts growling or letting me know that they don't want me near them, I always back off because that's the only way to make them comfortable. If somebody's like, I don't feel comfortable with you near me, and you just go into their personal bubble and force them to give you a hug, that person isn't going to like you anymore. And they're going to definitely like you less than they did before. So I just usually always go with what the dog is saying. And if the dog doesn't want to be by someone, I let them go away. Like, don't make them say hi to people that they don't feel comfortable with. I have a Malinois. She didn't come in tonight, but she has some fear aggressions, and what we did with her is we actually let her go behind us. So and that actually was kind of a natural behavior that I just reinforced, which was if she doesn't want to say hi to somebody, she goes behind me or my wife, and then that's it. Sorry, you don't get to pet the dog. The dog doesn't want to get pet. That's her telling us, I don't want to, and if you do it, there's going to be consequences. So look for signs. Usually whale eyeing. Whale eyeing is a sign of stress. Any sign of stress can lead to biting and things like that. So whale eyeing is when they're looking like sideways with a big. If you see the whites of their eyes, that dog is not comfortable. The ears back, ears down, cackles on the back of the neck, tail wagging, and any sort of combo thereof. That combination is different for each dog, but generally, once you figure out your dog, you can tell when they're going to escalate. Generally, there's a fairly long escalation. Barking is actually around mid-range of the escalation to violence with dogs. So it's just hard to say without actually seeing the behavior. All right, I'll take one last question. Okay, well, thanks for everyone for sticking with me, and hopefully next time we can get it going right on time without any computer gremlins. But until next time, I'll be putting out some videos over the next few weeks about desensitizing animals. Not a problem. We'll also put a video on the one coming out. We'll discuss. I have a moment with one client where we get to see a lot of signs of nervousness. The dog doesn't completely act nervous, according to some people, but it exhibits a lot of signs of those nervous behaviors, such as a tail. It's not so much that the tail wasn't wagging, but the tail was wagging, like oscillating this way is a happy dog. Oscillating like a tail, kind of uneven tail wagging, means the dog's nervous and doesn't know what I should be feeling at that point in time, or displaying. And then after that, I've got some desensitizing videos and a few others. If anybody has any questions or would like me to do a video over something specific, feel free to ask. And if I've done one, might just link you to the one that's already done, or maybe it's time to do a new one. So, all right. Thank you all. You all have a great one.